Hey, how's everybody doing? I am Tomlin's Nyback, and again, this is 365 Days Towards Racial Change, and I'm glad to get back to this project. We are behind schedule by a few months, but it's justified. Some other priorities came up. Life it's not in a straight line always, and that uh, the lack of consistent process is exacerbated for black people or people at a disadvantage in America's socioeconomic structure. Right? I'm watching. Okay, right now it's mid-December, 2019. Our political news is all about impeachment and stuff like that. But it's interesting to note that the decisions, the policies, the experience gets more male and more white as it reaches its crescendo, its culmination. That's by design. It's purposeful. If you stuck around with me for a year, if you're familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson's work, then um, you kind of know how we get to that point. The the competition, in a sense, is not fair. So those with a disadvantage culturally, skin color, and all that tend to get left behind as where we talk about having access to the power structure. What these individuals are involved with will impact the entire planet. What they're into. So it's like they are experimenting um, with atomic energy, so to speak. If you've seen a movie called Fat Man and Little Boy, you'll know how deadly that is, both in its aftermath and for the scientists who were putting the first atomic bombs together. One guy got a lethal dose and died a horrible death. Uh, we got, just for a backdrop, one bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, another of those bombs dropped on Hiroshima, and we got unconditional surrender from Japan. You know, that's the intensity that you got to appreciate for what's going on. And as when we talk about the American experience, these you don't want individuals hobbled and encumbered with too many challenges. You need them. You do need them to have had an experience essentially devoid of some of the pitfalls, shortcomings, um, you know, uh, issues that can hobble a person. I think about it. I remember a Winter Olympics one year where this black female really had a shot at winning it all, and she was up. I think Katarina Witt, the white. I forget. She's not. She wasn't American. Katarina wasn't American. Maybe German, but it was these two. It came down essentially to these two, and I was watching this. This is even long before I got into this kind of material. And the black female, see, I don't even know her name, but she faltered, and I was thinking, at that moment, the stumble, the things that brought her marks down, occurred because even at that level, she's navigating some kind of racial issue in that moment, you know. Because I'm a performer, and when I'm going through a process and I'm feeling good, the mind is accessing all kinds of data, past, present, aspirations, uh, technical stuff, right? It's all going on to deliver the performance. And for disadvantaged groups, for Black people, there might be a little bit piece of corruption in there to taint the process, to knock it off, distract just that little bit, to prevent an individual from executing world-class excellence, right? And I that was my thought at that moment. I don't know what she was going through to make her stumble in that moment, but that's what I say. And today, as I just free form before we get into story time, that's what I want to talk about is, our I think a problem in America is we're not serious, we're not honest about how our biases inform our experience. You know, if you're a young white woman, attractive, watching these videos, there's this unspoken discourse going on between this man on your computer screen or smartphone and your identity. You know, if you're gay, Black, male, um, uh, you know, strung out on drugs, okay, watching this video, then it's more than just hearing stuff about race from a unknown Black man. You're having there's more experience going on there. You know, if you're an educator, a college professor, and you stumble on and you feel like this may contribute to your class curriculum, this public um, information from a guy with a pseudonym. Well, there are discourses going on professionally, personally. If you're white, if you're Hispanic, if you're German, Russian, if you're from Africa, all these things. If you're male, female, gay, straight, any portion of the rainbow, you're having that experience. And what we don't, America's beginning to get encumbered um, in its own plethora of identities. There's an infinite amount of configurations, combinations that we can be, yet we don't know until we disclose or until we have the conversation who exactly we are. And then, even then, once I define myself as Black, male, heterosexual, with the philosophical leanings, aspiration for the arts, a talent in the arts and things like that. Got to be careful, because then in my identification, you might exclude some of the other subtleties that go along with this. Try to think of this project, 365 days of racial change. This is just a schematic, a blueprint, and it needs to be applied cross-culturally, color, social status, economic uh, position, all these things. Think about how the conversation is configured, and you can apply it. It's scalable to so many other conversations. Don't leave this video, these short 20, 30-minute videos thinking that it's just about black folks. That's the conversation and stuff, but that's just some of the fundamentals. As important and dire and grave as they are important. I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. You can find him all over YouTube, and well, his material is easy to get a hold of. I've never talked to him, but he does have some Q&A going on just recently. Again, this is mid-December 2019, and I just stumbled on. It looks like he's trying to be more consistent online. Maybe he's not getting out much. He seemed to indicate he had a recent some physical challenges or whatever. If you do get in contact with him, tell him Tomlin's Nyback sent you. I'd love to talk to the man. Actually, I really respect him and his work. And his work informs us, where we're doing story time, extended story time, and trying to get Uncle Tom's Cabin out of the way. We're going to get back to serious issues. Maybe the universe configured it so that we had a delay so that we could spill over into 2020. 2020 is going to be one of the most important years on the planet Earth ever. We're all connected through electronic means, the entire planet essentially. Our economies are intertwined, our politics are intertwined. There's intrigue, conflict worldwide, polarization. And 2020, we're going to see who may lead this nation after so much angst and stuff. So I guess now just musing on it, it's appropriate that 2020 would that racial change would spill over into 2020. Dr. Anderson, he's written a lot of stuff. I'm starting to write. Hopefully, you'll buy my stuff whenever I get it out there. But he's written 3 works I bought. He's got a bundle pack that I immediately bought because his message resonated with me so powerfully. Get this book. If you get one of his books ever, he recommends some other stuff. I say get this one. This will light the fire because it's a cross section of history, social issues and stuff like that. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics.com. You can look back on a lot of my past posts, and all 3 of those books are referenced. Behind me, you'll see the hashtag #US2 symbol, where it's Black women coming together, supporting one another, having their conversation. There are some unique differences between the Black male and the Black female in this experience. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a Black Facebook experience. If you have a mind for business, check out Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School. He's got a lot of introductory samples and stuff. I'm not a subscription guy. I don't like subscriptions. That's a whole nother conversation, but he has a lot of subscription type services. And that's just not my thing, but I give him a shout out because he gave me his free trial and stuff. I checked him out and stuff. My life just goes in swings on a different pendulum. Oh, you can find Dr. Anderson at Powernomics.com. I think I just said that. I'm getting older, so I might be forgetting stuff. And finally, we're doing some extended story time. It's holidays, taking it easy. I'm in between semesters. I like story time here because we talk about Uncle Tom's Cabin, and I want you to get this book to get all the resources that I suggest to you Uncle Tom's Cabin, a fictional account of slave life right before the Civil War, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Uh, it's a phenomenal book. I think we need to reintroduce it and to curriculum, help our young people get a racial grip on how the country came to be, on how you put a white child, black child in the same classroom, yet they're going to have a different experience, and they're going to grow into different um, ways to access the wealth and resources uh, of this great nation. Okay, we're in chapter 36. Emmeline and Cassey. They're talking. Legree is he's recovering from uh, the blonde hair curling around. That's Eva's hair, which reminds him of his mother. He has blown his horn. He's got Sambo and Quimbo to come running up to the big house to drink and party and fight and laugh loud and stuff like that. Uh, so Cassie's retreated upstairs. She still lives in the house. She has some kind of power. Legree is her master. Um, Legree uses her sexually. Now Legree has purchased Emmeline because Cassie's getting older and stuff. So now Legree gets a younger sexual slave to be brought up in the house. Very common in the South. You didn't have, um, they didn't call it rape back then and all that. You bought that female, that slave, and she was yours uh, to that white man to do whatever he wanted until he was finished. And then he cast her aside. You know, Cassie's been at the hands of a lot of people. Emmeline is fairly new, may be a virgin. So Cassie's upstairs. Emmeline is miserable. Uh, she doesn't like Legree. Nobody does. He's a brute, you know, brute guy, you know. And Emmeline has been brought up sophisticated, proper, just like Cassie, And like I mentioned, these well-bred women are, for whatever reason, and this is free, white, and slave, for whatever reason, find themselves at the hands of these brute beast men, hedonists. Oh, I can't, imagine what some of these women have been through. So Emmeline, she doesn't like the alcohol. She doesn't like him. She's trapped in the house. She probably doesn't go outside, right? He probably keeps her not only in the house, probably upstairs, right? So she's got to try to entertain herself within these four walls 24/7. She wants to escape. She's pleading. Cassie says, no, you don't want to try that. We're in the middle of a swamp. He's got dogs. He'll tie you to that mysterious tree with the burn marks out back and really do stuff with you. There's no escape. Um, the alcohol thing she's not into it. Of course, she's a proper lady. She's been taught, evils of alcohol and drink and stuff like that, and excess and all that. And that's the problem, big problem in the system, and the people who are victims of it. And I can speak on this personally, being educated where, um, I was taught inclusion, melting pot, rights, that demonstrations, slavery, civil rights movements, and stuff like that happened so that I'd have equal access on the American landscape. That is not the truth of America. That's not how America works. Lump into that age and my sex as a black male, and I've got challenges. The black woman has, more challenges behind some of that stuff. Right? So, Emmeline and Cassey are just, it's disillusionment after disillusionment. When you're young, you kind of compartmentalize that stuff. It gets harder to keep down the older one gets. So she's on the outro, and Lean's on the intro of that. And America does that. Now, in America's defense, I'm going to say I have seen growth because we're at least having more conversations. Change is slow, it's dialectical. We have our thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Change is happening, but it's not happening fast enough for the people who need the most. That's one of the big problems. Cassey says, the owner has the last say in all things. This is where we are in the middle of a swamp, hot swamp. Oh boy, the damps. I have respiratory issues. I'd be one dead pneumonia, bronchitis carrying dude. Slavery would not have worn well on me in the deep south with that humidity. Ah, suicides out of the equation. And the church. I was brought up in the Protestant line, so I don't have the same. I don't have the same um, proof concerning suicide as the Catholics do. Catholics say it's a moral sin and stuff like that, and that's not how I read my Bible. My Bible is the truth, and suicide is not explicitly talked about in there. Uh, King Saul committed suicide. I don't think but I think he was God's kind of first choice. It was God's compromised choice for the first king in Israel, and I think he fared well in the afterlife. You know, but so the issue with suicide comes up in Harriet Stowe's book, properly, and so back then suicide belief, it was a blanket belief across the whole Christendom, Protestant and Catholic. I don't think it's so much now, and this is year 2019, and suicide or euthanasia, well, not euthanasia, assisted suicide is more common nowadays. I just went through a whole semester that touched on some of those issues. Oh, Sambo and Quimbo finally wear out Legree, which is the point. Get Legree drunk. They probably scoop up whatever's idly laying around because Legree's going to wake up with a hangover, probably forget what the evening's festivity, and those two are probably going to take whatever leftover alcohol and trinkets with them back to their space. He has Legree has a nightmare of being pulled into hell. I mean, the stuff Legree is going through is kind of out of a Edgar Allan Poe poem. Some of the you see Vincent Price. If I made a movie of Uncle Tom's Cabin. I'd use Vincent Price as Simon Legree. Vincent Price has passed on uh, so far, but he's the guy uh, that would play Simon Legree. He's having this dream of being pulled to hell. If you don't know who Edgar Allan Poe is, look that up. Easy to find out. Great, great poet from way back. Um, he's and it wakes him, out of his drunken slumber. So he downs some brandy to get him up. Cassey appears. She's still warning him about Tom, and again, like I think I said it yesterday, Legree is torn between bringing in a big crop and using the. Tom is like specialized farm equipment. Healthy when Tom's healthy stuff, he's gonna give you a serious harvest of cotton. But Legree doesn't want to hear any of that. He's there's an alternate willful soul in the space he owns, and he will not have it. He's gonna do everything to eradicate Tom's will. That's what to him. See, he's weighing. It's more important for him to have everyone under control rather than have his business going. I went through this at my last job. These fools, hands down, I'm one of the best workers they got. But they keep wanting to entangle me in this submission role. And I told that to their HR people. You know, I said, look, we're trying to get some work done. It's busy Christmas time, and your staff is worried about etiquette when boxes are rolling down the line. So if I don't play that, so I left instead of blowing the place up. Oh, Tom is near death. He's there. They've beaten on him. Then they work him in the day. It's very sad. Uh, Fortunately, the story shows Tom's faith increasing as his body decreases. We're going to see what's going to happen. What's going to happen with Tom as a result of this uh, abuse, little rest, hard work, beatings. Yeah. Also think about the South. Now this is we're going to talk about some serious issues at the end of this book that's going to come up. But think about the South. You've got unsolved murders, unsolved rapes. You've got families, clans of people that have engaged in some uh, extremely questionable behavior that have never been held accountable, that profited from this systematic abuse and all that. Think about that. How you know that there's people and families that just have never been touched, that lived and died in privilege and abusing and went to their graves in peace. Cassey still intercedes in Legree's abuse and punishments and beatings on Tom. Uh, it's a battle of wills. I guess the whole story has been coming to this point where the institution is going to meet someone with some conviction, any conviction other than being holistically submissive within the system. So here's this clash. They seem to be deadlocked. Legree seems to have the upper hand. Tom seems to be at a disadvantage. But if you have a spiritual mind, you know that it looks different. Um, it looks different on the other side, on the other side of the mirror. A lot of things are reversed there. So tune in tomorrow. That's day 274 out of the way. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. Thanks for another great time of story time in Uncle Tom's Cabin. We'll see you next time. Come back tomorrow. Bye-bye.